Hey friends, welcome back to The Current. This is Pastor Chris Nafis of Living Water Church, and today I am very honored to have Reverend Carrington Moore join me on the show. He is pastor and executive director of Cathedral, a church in Boston that meets in Boston Common outside in Boston every Sunday of the year, no matter the weather. He's also pastor of Bethel AME Church in Boston, and just doing some really cool work around trauma, around housing and homelessness, around leadership development, community development, and very grateful that I got to have the chance to just talk to him, deconstruct it, think about what he's learned, what we've learned through our very similar work in different places. Enjoy our conversation. Here it is. Carrington, thank you so much for doing this with me. It was just like a joy to get to hang out with you in Maine. Was that 2 months ago? And really glad that you came on with me. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure, Pastor Chris, to be with you and your beloved community. It's a true honor to make a meeting with you all today.
Yeah, there's been certain churches, especially as we've connected through the trauma program through Boston University, that just felt like they kind of have the same heart as our church. And Cathedral definitely felt that way as I got to know you. I was like, man, this is like, it's not exactly the same. You've been around longer than us, but like kind of the philosophy, the heart behind it is kind of the same. So can you tell us a little bit about Cathedral? What do you guys do? What's the history?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to say the work that you all are doing at Living Water is beautiful and it's important. So again, I am grateful to connect with you. Cathedral we're a church. We're also a faith-based nonprofit. We were started really kind of in 1994 organically through an Episcopal priest named Debbie Little. And around Easter of 1994, she began to see that unhoused persons and persons who might identify as being low income weren't really being serviced or supported or feeling a part of the Episcopal tradition within the kind of Boston area. And so she understood that even her church itself wasn't doing all that it could. And so one day she decided to go out in Boston Common and kind of sing some songs and just have an organic and formal gathering. And they sang songs, they served communion, had a little bit of food, and they had a wonderful time. And Debbie, Reverend Debbie Little, she thought this was going to be like a one-off. And as she was leaving, one of the parishioners who had came to the service said, "This is great, Debbie. We'll see you again next week." And that's how it started. So literally for the last almost 29 years, we've been meeting on the Boston Common to have lunch together and to have worship outside. And so we are an outdoor church that we take great pride in. So really our flagship way that we gather together the longest has been on Sunday morning worship. We also have a day shelter that operates on Monday and Friday from about 8 a.m. to about 2 p.m. where we do informal and formal programming. And then Wednesday, we have another flagship program that's been going on for almost 2.5 decades called Common Art. It's a space where we train and support our artists. We provide free materials. And we think doing visual art and any type of artistic endeavor really helps people feel in community, but also helps people feel human. And so those are our four kind of types of programming that we do together. We have about 8 persons on our team, 4 pastors on our team. We do a lot of pastoral care. And we are kind of the glue to the community, trying to really do our best to keep the structure of the church together. And so I'm grateful and excited to be the executive director and senior minister. I've been with Cathedral for the last 2.5 years. And this ministry has probably taught me the most. I've been in ministry for over 18 years. I've been in ministry since I was 19. I'm 37 now. And I will say this has taught me the most about being humble, about being patient, and really kind of doing the work of Jesus. We always say amongst the pastors, if Jesus was to come back right now, we believe that Jesus will be doing the work that we're doing today. And so that brings a lot of pride and a lot of joy to being part of this great team today.
Yeah, man, thank you for sharing. And, so we're in San Diego, right? And it's pretty temperate here. What's Boston? I want to come back to what you learned, but just for those who aren't familiar with what Boston Common is, like this is just like a park, basically, right? Like, what's it like there? What's it like gathering there? Throughout the year, maybe especially in the winter.
Yeah. Well, Boston Common, I believe, is the first kind of public park of this kind in the country. And so think of on any given Sunday, tens of thousands of tourists. We're located right outside of the state capitol building because Boston is really kind of the capital of Massachusetts. And so imagine this beautiful building, governmental building with a beautiful, extensive gold dome. And then you have St. Paul Cathedral, a flagship Episcopal church that's right across the street. And then you have Park Street Church, which is a real well-resourced Presbyterian church. And then you have the Boston Common. In the middle of that, we have this beautiful kind of Gothic style fountain that we worship in front of it. So imagine the chaos of tourists. Imagine a lot of families kind of hanging out, eating the hot dogs and the hamburgers in the park. And then our little beautiful community outside with the organ. We have a little cello player, a makeshift altar, and we have this custom-made cross that we've been carrying since the inception of Common Cathedral, with a small little microphone talking about Jesus, sharing testimony, preaching God's word, and serving communion. So if you are familiar at all with Boston Common, if you ever hang out at Boston Common on Sundays, you can't miss us. We're always there. And I would say, 80% of the people who come to our worship are persons who come all the time who identify as being a part of the community. I would say the other 20% are people who've heard about us, people who are ministry partners, and people who are just curious about, who are these people talking about Jesus? Who are these people having lunch, having pizza, and having sandwiches together, and having chips and hanging out? Because the thing about Cathedral, all are welcome. So if we see people, both our pastors and our community, and we see people who are interested or seem like they're kind of eyeballing us, like, what's going on? We often go up to them and introduce ourselves, say, hey, welcome to Common Cathedral. We're a place for all welcome. And so that's kind of the feel of Common Cathedral. It's like beautiful chaos.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's for San Diego folks, it sounds to me, it's kind of like Balboa Park for us. Balboa Park says the central large park for us. It's got these like classic Spanish style buildings all around. And it's not where our city capital is, but just, tourists and just lots going on there. And then there you guys are with your setup. Sounds like you got an organ. That's pretty legit setup over there.
Keyboard. It's not an organ. It's a
keyboard organ. Okay. Yeah. I was like, man. We do have an organ pavilion at our Balboa Park, but I don't know if we can get access to that thing. But yeah, and then there you guys are worshiping Christ together. It's awesome. We met outside for a little bit of our history, a couple of different times. One, we were at this park called Fault Line Park for several months, and then with COVID, we were meeting outside. And it comes with its challenges, but there's also like just this beauty to it because, like you said, people come by and discover you. I feel like for the season of our church, it was important. That was one of the ways that we really deeply connected with folks on the street, especially because, people were just in that park anyway. And then they're like, yeah, what's going on? Well, they got like fancy plates and dishes because we're serving communion and, there might be food after and people come and hang out. And pretty soon they're kind of getting into the community. How do you all like invite people in? You know what I mean? Like, how do you get people kind of to be not just sort of people that show up, but people that are like members of the community in a sense that's like deeper than just seeing each other once a week?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'll say there's a couple of things that kind of keep us moved together in a beautiful way. One, the multitude of programming we offer throughout the week. And so there's really kind of cool ways that you can kind of intersect with us through programming every week that we're open for. So now if there's Christmas or Thanksgiving or 4th of July, we're always open. We don't close for holidays. We've never missed a Sunday in the last, since we've been around.
It's crazy. You guys have had some crazy weather over there.
Wow, yeah, so that's real. And so we have very dedicated pastors. More important, we have dedicated parishioners.
Yeah.
Not parishioners, our vision statement, our end vision is to bridge the divide between housed and unhoused persons. But we also say there are people who are housed to a part of Common Cathedral. And we often have donors who are part of Common Cathedral who will deeply identify with being a part of this community. And so that's important to say. So majority of the way that our church grows and blossoms is really kind of word of mouth. That people often are sharing about this beautiful community that's open to all. You can get some good food and you can be in community and feel it's human. And so I would say that's kind of the way that people hear about us and interact with us, even our ministry partners, that we want people to have such a great experience that people will go out and tell people about the work that's happening at Common Cathedral. Yeah. It's almost like what Jesus says, go out and compel them to come in. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to really go out and compel people to come because we're saying at Common Cathedral, you'll feel welcome. You'll feel loved. You'll be invited into radical hospitality. That's one. The other thing I would say is that we often say with Common Cathedral, we're the first church of its kind in the country. And so the Common Cathedral was the first to start under something called Ecclesia Ministries. So our actual term is called, our actual 501c3, if you look us up, is called Ecclesia Ministries. We're the first ecclesia church in the country. And then Debbie Little, along with some other pastors, began to start different unhoused churches across the country. So now there might be 30 ecclesia ministries all throughout the country. So we're the first of its kind in the country. So in that way, prestige is not the right word, but there's a little bit of like curiosity that people have had over the years about Common Cathedral. That when you think about what does it mean to serve persons who are unhoused, people are low income, because we've been allowed for so long, but people often refer to us because they might have had a parishioner or a friend, or they might be a person who's formerly unhoused, and we supported them in their pastoral care and helping them get back on their feet. And so I think that's important to name. The other thing I will say that really kind of allowed us to grow and prosper is that we actually, I would say, we are in close relationship with other unhoused churches. I would say two that I would say we're in close proximity with. Something is called Manna. Well, Manna is a church that really serves the unhoused and persons who are low income, built part of St. Paul Cathedral. So it's one of the mission churches of St. Paul Cathedral, which is a flagship Episcopal church in Boston. And so we work very closely with them. And often the way that we do often programming is the days that we have programming or the days we're not open, Manna is often open. And so our people, our parishioners, our family, they have somewhere to go within our catchment area almost every day to find food, to find shelter, to find community. And so because a lot of our parishioners also worship at Manna, there's a close relationship that allows us to kind of support one another. And another church that was actually, and Manna was started, intern from Common Cathedral helped to start Manna. And another outdoor church that was started by another intern that heard about Common Cathedral is called the Outdoor Church of Cambridge, of which one of our senior associate minister, she actually serves both at the Outdoor Church of Cambridge, and also she serves as a senior associate minister at Common Cathedral. And so we have close proximity to their programming, their staff, and their community as well. And so I think Boston has done a really great job of lifting up the importance of unhoused churches and really having the focus to serve the unhoused and with a sense of excellence. And so I think that's really important. And the last thing I'll share that really makes the work that we do really important is our ministry partners. And so every Sunday we have a ministry partner. We don't purchase the food. Our ministry partners, they come and they bring the food and they serve our community and they fellowship with our community. A lot of the tools and supplies that we give on Wednesday for art is from our ministry partners. Almost every lunch that we have on Wednesday, Monday, and Friday is from ministry partners. And so because we have all of these different ways that we're trying to connect people to bridge the divide between housed and unhoused people, and it necessitates a type of fellowship and community that makes people want to go out and share the importance and the power of Common Cathedral. And so I think that's the best way I can answer the question. Last thing I'll share that's really important too, that's really been giving us a lot of attention and support, particularly by youth groups, and something we do is called City Reach. And City Reach is an overnight service learning program that we've been doing for the last maybe 15 years. And so imagine once a month during the academic year from September to June, we do a youth overnight. And this youth overnight is from about 7 p.m. to about 4 p.m. on the next day. So from Friday to Saturday. And this overnight is run and it's facilitated by our unhoused community. And so our unhoused community, they run the programming, they support the service learning of the community, and then we host a Saturday kind of gathering where people can come and clothes, toiletries, and a free meal that's provided by the youth groups that come and learn from our unhoused community. So that's another place of leadership development, another place where we are reaching out to bridge the divide between housed and unhoused persons. And so that's been really kind of important for our community. That's allowed us to kind of grow and maintain ourselves, both in programming, both in terms of financial sustainability, but also in terms of wanting to feel part of a vibrant and beautiful church.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful. And because, one of the things that we've been talking a lot about, that I've been thinking and praying a lot about, especially kind of post-COVID, is, for us, these days, we have a lot of service-oriented stuff going on. We have a lot of people come through the door. I just came from church just a little bit ago, and right now there's people serving coffee. And, when I left, the line was, out the door, down the ramp, around the corner. And, we've got, tons of people coming through every day. But for us, we're trying to re-bridge that gap between between people who come for services and people who come because they belong and they feel like they have a stake in this ministry and in this life and this community. And what I hear you saying is, because in churches like ours, I'm maybe I can make it some assumptions about your church, but we're just always stretched for resources, and by that I mean financial resources and also like human resources, people that are actually around to do the work, that are capable of really contributing in a major way to the life of the community, to running programming and all those kinds of things. And like you, we're trying to raise up people from our community to do a lot of that work and trying to hand off, kind of leadership positions and trying to raise that up. But it still feels like we're always short. But what I hear you saying is that it's some of your partnerships. So, you all aren't open every day, but then man is open. And so there's kind of a place for this community to go and be a part of something that's deep and meaningful, where they can be treated with dignity and respect, where they can be led in the ways of Christ, and treated as with the hospitality of God, and also just sort of elevated and have friends, you know what I mean? And that's so important for folks on the street. And some of those partnerships seem important, which I think you have to have a posture of openness to do that, because it's easy to get kind of possessive of people and be like, oh, don't go over there, like come over to what we're doing, But if you're working collaboratively, and I think we've had some of these partnerships in the past, and I think maybe that's one thing that we need to get back around for our church. I'm just kind of processing aloud here, but man, that's beautiful. I love it. I love it, and you guys are doing good work. It's good stuff.
No, I appreciate it. You all doing, I think, similar and amazing work as well. The other thing I just thought in mind as I'm processing what you shared is that I also think there's a certain level of Christianity that also exists in Boston theologically, that really kind of plays a role in the type of work that we're able to do and sustain it. And I think there's a type of maybe progressive kind of liberal theology. One, because of the seminaries that are here, that you have Boston College here, you have Boston University School of Theology here, you have Harvard Divinity School, you have Episcopal Divinity School here. You also have some moderate to conservative schools like Borton Commonwealth Theological Seminary. So intellectually, you have a space where people are being trained as seminarians, but also as pastors, scholar practitioners here. The people are invested both in building dynamic house churches, but also kind of figure out how to utilize their resources to support kind of the needs of the community as well. The other part I think that plays a role in that is that because mostly, there's a great tradition of mainline Protestant churches here that have an edge or inclination towards social justice that makes people curious about the work of Common Cathedral and the work of supporting those who are low income and unhoused here. So I think that also plays a role in the work that we do that makes the work sustainable, but they might not be as sustainable in other parts of the country. So I want to name that too. I want you to think more about that. That's an assumption, and a hunter side just popped in my mind, but I actually want to think more about that. So thank you for naming that.
For sure. I mean, I came away from that main time with you all thinking, man, you guys have such a beautiful network of people doing similar work together, and honestly feeling like a little jealous that we don't have all these seminaries around San Diego. We got a couple schools, but we're not pumping out pastors everywhere that are looking for things to do while they study or afterwards. And it's just a little bit more of a challenge. On the West Coast, we have Fuller as a major seminary. There's a couple bigger schools up in like the Bay Area, but down here in Southern California, there's really not there's not many kind of academically focused seminaries or gatherings like that, apart from there's undergrad schools and stuff, but it's just a little bit of a different community. And also thinking like, man, I gotta tap in. I know there's people doing more of this stuff here in San Diego. We just gotta find them, connect, and if no one's kind of gathering people in that way, then maybe that's time for us to step up and start gathering people. Because I think we do need collaboration for this kind of work to work. And we've had that with some secular groups. We had Voices of Our City Choir, which you may not know, but folks in our congregation will know. And then we have like a network of Nazarene churches that are supportive of us in different ways, and other churches. But it just feels like we got to find some other churches that have like kind of the heart and the identity that we have, and hoping they're out there. But it is like such a gift that you all are able to do that. The thing that brought our communities together was really this work on trauma. So you all were also part of the congregational trauma grant program through Boston University that we're part of with Shelley Rambo. And I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about Can We Talk is the program that you guys have instilled, right? So we've been doing Flow for those of us part of Living Water, and you all have been doing Can We Talk. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Well, let me say, Pastor Chris, we're hoping that we can do flow groups.
Yeah.
When I said I was to your beautiful community, when I was in a retreat with Pastor Chris and some other folks, more he was talking about flow groups, I would go at night, I would journal and try to discern to figure out how do we get flow groups as a part of Cathedral, because I know that would be such a blessing to our community. So I'm grateful for the vision and the work that you and the community has had around that. But I can't talk.
Thanks to your great school network, you have now 2 flow facilitators from our church that are in Boston now, feet on the ground. So we're going to have to make that happen. You got Sam and you got Alex. Both of them ended up in Boston doing grad school. So we'll make the connections. We'll get it working. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, Kirk.
And let me say one more thing about, we'll get back to Can We Talk. One of the things about Boston that's really interesting, if you're a pastor who seeks to be in vocational ministry, particularly with the house church, Boston is not the place that you come for. As a matter of fact, I would say mainline and Protestant churches here actually numerically are dying. And frankly, they're able to stay afloat because of them being well-resourced historically with their endowments.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, Cathedral actually benefits from people who know that in Boston, the likelihood of you building a 300, 400, 500 member church is highly unlikely.
Yeah.
The likelihood of you being able to galvanize the congregation that you have to do justice or social justice or charity work is much more significant or meaningful, I found, for a lot of churches in the area. And so, at Cathedral, we really try to work with people on how we build real and authentic community that really is supporting all of God's children. So let me name that. I want to just kind of say that. The other thing is about Can We Talk. Now, Can We Talk is a beautiful program. We didn't start Can We Talk. Can We Talk is a part of a program that was started by Reverend Liz Walker. Reverend Liz Walker is an amazing woman like Debbie Little. She's an African-American woman who's the first African-American news anchor in Boston. And so Liz Walker, she was working with actually one of the senior pastors at another church that I served at, Bethel AME Church. She was working with Gloria Whiteham, who's also a pastor, but also a pediatrician. And Gloria Whiteham, and she was called by God to do some work in the Sudan to start a school for women and a school for young Black girls in Sudan. And Liz Walker, I'm sorry, this is a long story, but I'll get to the point.
That's all right.
Liz Walker, during her time as a news anchor with Boston, she actually would go to Sudan multiple times a year to document the work that was happening around social justice and Jesus in the Sudan. And because of that, she felt a calling of God. So she left this amazing job, this 6-figure job as a news anchor, and went to Harvard Divinity School and decided to become a Presbyterian pastor. And so while she was a Presbyterian pastor in the local kind of urban space of Boston, pastoring Black Presbyterians, she found that there was so much trauma from gun violence, for a lack of unfulfilled potential because economic disparity and economic violence that's been historically waged against Black people in this country. And so because of that, she began to think and discern, like she saw there was a high number of Black women who had lost their children because of gun violence. And then she saw that people really didn't have access to kind of therapy in the traditional sense because of the stigma behind it, but then also because of the financial barriers because of it. And so because of that, she's like, how do we empower people really kind of break the stigma of mental health support, but then also empower them in a way where they can kind of share their story in a way that is comfortable and authentic and organic for them. And so from that birthed the Can We Talk network that was started out of our church. So she started a nonprofit in the church called the Roxbury Presbyterian Social Impact Center. And from there, she housed the Can We Talk program. And so it started maybe 8 years ago. And they've been doing these Can We Talk programs. And Can We Talk is simply a dialogic model that is around fellowship over a communal meal, but also it provides space for you to kind of share your story, share your trauma, but also share your healing. And so it's done within an hour-long setting setting that it's in collaboration with a mental health clinician, in collaboration with the pastoral team, but also in collaboration with kind of community members that you train to be the community champions to support people who might want to share their story. And so it's it's authentic and organic space. There's a lot of preparation to kind of make the space safe, safe, but then also supportive when people come and share their story, because stories can trigger one another. And so having the mental health clinician there, having the community champions there, having a pastoral team there is very important. And so over the years, she started the Can We Talk program. She started it in Boston. Right now in Boston, there might be 25 to 30 groups, mostly churches who do Can We Talk. Now I believe it's in New York, it's in Chicago, it's in DC. And it's the program's going national. But the thing that we're really grateful for at Common Cathedral is that we're the first unhoused church to do Can We Talk.
Okay.
It's been a great blessing. We've been doing it for over a year now. And the way that we implemented the program is that they give a grant to us for 2 years, one to do the communal meals. So part of Can We Talk, that there's an intentional communal meal that we have together. And then they pay us so that we can pay a commission to kind of come in and support the work that we're doing. And the other thing that we do, because we believe that Can We Talk, that people should be compensated for the work, we actually pay our community members who are trained as community champions. We pay them for the work that they do for Can We Talk as well. And so that's been a really beautiful space. And so we first assigned it about a year and a half ago, and we went through about 4 or 5 months of training our staff, training our community, and then we launched the first Can We Talk at Common Cathedral last June. And it's been going ever since. And so it's been really beautiful. It's been great. And Can We Talk is going up because of word of mouth. That people know, again, there'll be a space where they can be themselves. They can share their story. They don't have to feel alone. And one of the things that I think that's really the deep sadness that I think it comes with being unhoused was that there's a deep degree of loneliness that can happen in being unhoused. And so we're trying to figure out how do we support people who might feel lonely or feel like their story doesn't matter, when in fact everyone's story matters, and everyone's story is a part of the great, a lot of the community that God has called us to. The last thing, we believe that people can, one, be healed of their trauma by one being in community and being able to share the depths of their story in ways that are safe and affirming as well. And that's really what the Can We Talk kind of program allows for. So we've been doing that, and then we will just further support it and the work with the Thriving Congregation grant by Boston University to kind of continue the work of Can We Talk. And so that's what the program is.
Yeah, it's so different than what we're doing, but like along the same vein. And it's been interesting to me because as I got to know about your program, like a big part of the Flow Group program is like, well, we don't really want to talk about it not that we don't want to talk about it ever, but like the Flow Group is specifically designed to not open and not trigger and not open those cans of worms that can kind of spiral in certain ways when people start telling trauma stories in certain ways, right? But I think one of the things that's been interesting is I've thought about your program, and then a couple weeks ago I had Brad Kelly on this podcast and talked to him. He wrote a book on moral injury, and one of the things that he was saying, especially around moral injury, is that one of the specifically healing things about moral injury, which is just the result of people, I guess, coming face to face with the injustice of the world, coming up against systems that just don't work and aren't fair, is being able to share the story in a non-judgmental setting, which is exactly what you all are doing, right? Being able to share maybe their part in the moral failure of the community or their own moral failure or the things that have happened to them, kind of whatever the case might be, and then not have people judge them, throw it back in their face, tell them what to do, give them certain kinds of advice, but to receive it, right? And to receive it with grace and a sense of like camaraderie. And it seems like that's what you all are doing. I want to see it somewhere, because in our, like when we open up the mic for people in our church, so we do like a praises and Payne's time every week, and we get some wild stuff. I think this week, just on Sunday, someone predicted my death, in a couple weeks from now, which sort of assumed that my family, my wife and kids had already died also in a sort of it was a prophetic promise of God's reuniting us. We just get weird stuff. It's going to be triggering. And so I'd love to hear more about like, how do you create like the safe space for people to share in appropriate ways that, and to kind of keep that trigger domino effect from happening. Like, how does that work for you all? I don't mean this in like a challenging way. Like I want to know how we can do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I would say, if I'm being honest, it's not a cop out, but a lot of the training that we get with Can We Talk really supports that. And so also, I want to say that, holding the structure of the space, it's probably done by champions who are entrusted by our community, that these are leaders already in our community, but then also by our pastors. Every Can We Talk, we actually read guidelines at the beginning and sometimes in the middle to make sure people kind of know what the space is and what's allowed for. One of the things that we often stress, one community guideline is no crosstalk, meaning that if someone shares their story, you're not allowed and not supposed to respond to that story, whether it be good or bad, because that's the person's story. So there's a lot of kind of guidelines and structure in the program that allows it to happen. The other thing I would just say, there's a sense of kind of awkwardness in the establishment of Can We Talk for our community. Because like you said, we're talking about trauma, about what happened when they were a child, or how they're dealing with being low income, or how you're dealing with debt, or with, feeling burdened with so many things. How do you deal with being separated from your child? All those stuff. They don't always talk about that per se, but indeed people do want to talk about it.
Right. They do. They do and they don't. Yeah.
So it's like, but to make people want to talk about it, give them the space, they have to create comfortable, inviting, healing spaces. And I think that's part of the training that kind of happened. And so a big part of Can We Talk is being able to sit comfortably in silence. That is very organic, that you don't pick anybody to go to get up and share their story. If no one shares their story within an hour of Can We Talk, that's okay. Yeah. We'll sing songs to hold the space. The other thing I'll say about Can We Talk that's important, we also employ what we might call a community artist for the day, which is really important. So someone kind of sets the tone through some type of artistic performance. It could be a poem, it could be a song. You have to have people get performative dance. It kind of sets the tone that allows the space to be inviting. Because it's also really important too. So the mixture of fellowship, of art and culture that creates a spiritual space for people to kind of share their story. Then the other part is that people are amongst their family, meaning that their community, we're a body of believers like any church. And so people who are coming to Can We Talk, more than likely, they've had some interaction with their community consistently for a year or for years. And so when people share, even if it might be difficult to share, or they're going to share something that's deeply personal, they know for the most part, they're amongst family as well. So that also, as a part of, that's built into the program, that you're creating a space where you're elevating leaders within the community that they can kind of provide support. If people feel triggered or unsafe or need to talk more, there's a mental health clinician that can help them work through their story. And then you also have pastoral care that's provided as well, because our pastors or staff are also present. So there's a lot of things that are kind of baked into the structure of the program that allow for people to feel comfortable enough to share their story. So for the most part, the first 2 times we did it, it often would be like myself and a pastor, and maybe 2 to 3 community members who would share a story. And now just most of our community sharing a story, and maybe our pastors when they feel inclined to. And it's been really beautiful. It's been a healing space for me as well, because again, the mission of Common Cathedral is to bridge the divide between housed and unhoused persons. So that means that anyone who might even be housed, they're also welcome to share their story as well. So I appreciate that space as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's so good. Well, one of the things that I'm hearing in there is just this commitment to patience, really, and I found that to be really, really true for the flow groups, and really for everything that I've learned around trauma, is that you have to be able to move slow to create space, like take the time to create space in the right ways, to train people to do the things the way they need to be done, and then to wait for it to develop on its own, because when you start forcing things, and that's when people start getting, dysregulated, and then that's when problems start occurring. But you have to have this patience to say, all right, in the first week, if no one talks, if it's just two of the leaders that are the only ones that share a story and everybody else just kind of sits quietly around the table, then that's okay, and then we'll try again. But that'll kind of set, because there is something being done in that. Like there's a framework that's being established of like, this is what we're here to do, and we're going to wait. We're going to be patient for it. And we're not going to force or put pressure on anybody to say anything they don't want to say. And it's going to, we're just going to be here. We're going to hold the space, which is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I could have said it better. That patience is really important, and that consistency. So we do the program, when we say we're going to do, can we talk and do it? And people look forward to it. And so it's been a blessing because of the patience and the commitment of the community and our common cathedral pastors.
Yeah. Well, you said earlier that like this setting, like working at Common Cathedral, is where you've kind of learned the most in your ministry time. And without trying to put you on the spot or anything, like, I mean, what have you learned? What has this taught you in your own faith journey? Like, how has this taught you to be a more committed or a more, I don't know, whatever, disciple of Christ? Like, what have you learned?
Yeah, I think I've learned. That's a good question. Let me make sure I take the time to answer that. I learned a lot about leadership. And so this is the first organization/church that I've ever led, which is important to say. I've served on boards and in leadership positions for the last decade of my life. And so being fully responsible from the financial wherewithal to the development of staff, to the care of our community, that's been a big burning's not the right word. That's been a really big task that I've had to embrace with humility. I think I'm relatively gifted in my skills as a pastor, as a communicator, and I take pride in that. And coming to Common Cathedral, like it was like, there's so many things that I'm not good at. To leadership. So there's so many things that I'm great at. And there's so many things that became very apparent for me that needs support. And so one of the things that I've learned that's really important is to show grace to myself, to be able to lean into the pain points of my life. Because I think pastoring, as you know, it's not just a job. Well, you could, but at least for me, and I know for you and for others, you just don't walk away from it when you clock out. You just don't be church. No, that's it. You might have people who are all the time. You're always thinking about the community. You're thinking about how to make things better. You're thinking about how to go to church. You're thinking about how to raise money. You're thinking about all those things. And so I've had to learn how to, the words you say, be patient with the progress, and to take note of how God is manifesting God's self in the community. Sometimes it's not very apparent. It might not be apparent after a month or two. When you start looking back, over your time, and say, oh, well, yeah, we did this. Oh, yeah, we did that. Oh, this person got housing, or, oh, this person is growing in their leadership. And so sometimes the data of the work is not always captured, but sometimes you have to remind yourself of the work that is happening. The other thing that I've learned as a leader is that in this space is that criticism is a part of the territory of being a leader, and being able to openly lead into the criticism, but then also be okay with it too. But no matter how much you do, no matter what happens, that people will always have something to say, and that's okay. And that's what I've learned. And with criticism, one, not to take it personal, but then two, to really investigate the criticism or the feedback, to kind of see what part of the feedback or the criticism could be very valid and very true, that can really kind of help you grow in your own leadership ability, both as a pastor, but then also as a communal leader. So that's really important. And the last thing I'll say is that it's really helped me think long-term about what does real liberation mean? For us at Common Cathedral, at least for me, as the executive director and senior minister, liberation means that there are total dismantling of the systems that allow people to be at low income and unhoused in the first place. And so that's not something that will be achieved or overcome even in my lifetime, possibly, but it does mean that we're called to learn the systems that are at play. The great scripture that I talked about, we're wrestling not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spiritual wickedness in higher places. The very system that allows people to be low income and unhoused and to experience a type of economic devastation or exploitation, those are principalities and spiritual wickedness in higher places. And so as pastors, in seminary, I feel people are often trained. We're trained often to have the words to comfort those who are dealing with unjust or inappropriate systems. We don't always have the acumen or the skill set to really address those systems in a systematic way. And so those are some of the things that I'm learning. Figuring out like how do we move churches through our messaging from being, churches that are involved in charity. Charity we're saying is like a one-off or a place that you kind of give. It's not multi-directional. It's just you serving someone to be multi-directional, which means that we're incorporating a system of justice, which means that there's collaboration, that we're leaning and trusting in one another. So it's really helped me learn how to not just create a language for liberation, but to learn the different aspects, both politically and economically, but also spiritually, that can allow for the church to be reignited and more informed about how to do justice. And so for me, being a pastor at unhoused church it's taught me how to be a better leader in the spaces that I occupy outside of Common Cathedral. And so long story short, those are some of the things that I've learned of this work. And, being at Common Cathedral, there's a couple of things that happened. I got this job. I started working here as a pastor a little bit after I was married. And then I had my first child there, a son, while I've been working at Common Cathedral. So it's also taught me the importance and value of family. That this work will always be here, but your true ministry is your family. And so, one of the things that I love talking to you, Chris, I think about the kids. They keep doing. I like treating. For me, when I look at pastors and leaders, the first thing I want to know is how do you balance it all? Like how are you tending to the deeper parts of your life, which is your family and your health? And so for me, this has really taught me like to be a good leader, to be able to be multi-vocational and to be informed and feel like to grow my own skill set. There has to be a certain level of health, both of my physical body and with my family, that can push me to do this work in deeper ways. And so when I'm not fulfilled in my family and in my health, it bleeds into my job. But when I'm fulfilled and I'm putting my family first, my son and my wife, and I'm taking care of my physical body, I can show up as a pastor and as a leader in better ways. And so that's really been the real learning that I think is going to continue to bless my life long term, that whatever position I occupy, the real joy is not just doing the work of ministry, but the real ministry is tending to your family and to your home. And so I think that's what I'll be learning. That's been the most valuable lesson I've learned in this season of leadership for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so much of that is like so deeply familiar to my journey at Living Water that it's just like right on the money. And one of the, just bringing it full circle maybe or a little bit is, when I realize how, as you're saying, like my own well-being, my own ability to balance everything, to have like the space I need to rest, recover, whatever, how much that affects my ability to lead well, to be a good pastor. And then I think about how, the people in our community are struggling with all of those things too. And that's, to me, that's why like our flow groups, which are really aimed at helping people heal from trauma, that's why to me they're discipleship groups ultimately. Like that's the ultimate goal of them is discipleship. Because if you're all dysregulated and messed up and you're dealing with all this unhealed stuff, like you can't be the disciple, the leader, the follower, the person who loves God and loves others in the way that you want to be, because your own self, you're not settled your own self, right? And so I need to work on that myself as a pastor, especially as the one kind of upfront, kind of guiding things and creating the vision. But I also need to help folks in my community to find that balance too, which is really hard when you're on the street, right? It's really hard when you're carrying some of the wounds and the things that people in our communities are carrying. And so when you're talking about powers and principalities, because I talk about that a lot, and I tell people, before I came to Living Water, powers and principalities was like this kind of like hyper spiritualized, kind of a other dimensional thing. And now I'm like, no, I know, I can name them. I see them. You know what I mean? I can see some of them. At least I know exactly who the powers are in some cases. And I know the systems that are bigger than any one person, but that are there fighting against the people of God and the way of God and the love of God in this world.
Yeah. My ultimate dream, I'll share the last thing I'll share that's really important. My ultimate dream is to build an arm of Common Cathedral that involves being organized in advocacy. I think we're a step in doing that. We just received funding from the Lilly Endowment. It's been the largest donation given to our organization. That's something I'm very proud of. That's going to form something called the Center of Public Theology and Transformational Preaching. And we're saying that because a lot of the work that we do is really centered around the empowerment of our community members. And so we're literally going to be teaching people our kind of preaching pedagogy or methodology that we do every Sunday on the Boston Common for the last 28 and a half years. That's led by our community members. We're going to be teaching that to house pastors, and they'll come from across the country to learn from us through the work that we do. And that's really meaningful, that we're saying that we're sharing and building this message of justice, of love and liberation. At the center of that, learning, persons who are the experts in this work. It's not some professor, it's not some politician, it's not some pastor at some fancy church. It's our community members.
That's right. That's right.
Well, walking in the streets, in our close proximity to the pain. And not only can they name the problem, but they also inherently can name the solutions as well. And so that's the next phase of Common Cathedral that we're trying to build over the next 2 to 5 years that I'm really excited about. And as we get this off the ground, if I can do that, I can say I am grateful for the work that I've been able to accomplish at Common Cathedral. And then it's also just encouraging, Pastor Chris, to meet great persons like you in your community, see that the work that you're doing. At the end of the day, it is about kind of how do we grow in discipleship together. That's what it's all about. Like, how do we become more like Jesus in every area of our life? And so, we're excited to really experiment with these small groups in this coming year as we're going to partner together with Boston University to kind of hopefully exchange programs.
Yeah, for sure.
What it means to start, can we talk at Living Water? What does it mean to start these beautiful discipleship small groups at Common Cathedrals? That's something I'm looking forward to.
Well, and I love how it flips the script, because so many churches come to us and with good hearts, right, and thinking like, I'm here to help your people that are on the street. And, I love the way that how you're talking about it flips the script, right? It's like, no, like we have something to teach you guys, actually. Like you all need to listen to some of the people that are on the street because they have wisdom and they have a perspective that, you think just because, you're in a higher status from them socially, that better than they do, but they're closer to Christ in a lot of ways than most of the other folks that are around kind of the more mainstream middle class churches. And so I love the way that you all are flipping that script and empowering people to have like a voice that are coming out of that. Yeah, go ahead, go please.
Last thing I'll share that's really important. I love being at Common Cathedral because I think Common Cathedral being with our beloved community, but they teach it what matters the most. I think sometimes, as folks, particularly in the United States, we could be so kind of compelled by the creature comforts of capitalism that we want to get the nice next big house or the nice big car or the next whatever you need, want more, never satisfied. But being at Common Cathedral, the beautiful part is that you learn what matters the most, which is your health, your family, your friendships, and your community. And we realize that you have those things, wow, God has been extremely good to me. And I will say I learned gratitude and love more at Common Cathedral almost than any other church that I can serve that. When I had my third knee surgery, but I don't even know what it was, last October, I can't remember. And the people who called me the most, quite frankly, were people who are part of persons who would text me and check on me. How you doing, Carrington? Anything but praying for you. That really blessed my heart. Right now, I got to respond to 3 or 4 text messages to people like, "Hey, Carrington, how you doing? You doing okay? We'll see you tomorrow." For Colin and I. Those things are really important because they really, my community at Common Cathedral, they really show the power of Jesus through how they love and want to be a radical and intimate community. Like all communities, we have our, all churches, we have our troubles, we have our struggles, but at the end of the day, we're a family, and it's not so much about what it means to be a pastor, what it means to be a leader, and what it means to value the life things in life.
Yeah, man, it's beautiful, and it's been such a blessing to get to know you just this summer. And I'm excited to see where the friendship goes and where the partnership goes between our congregations. And I'm just very inspired by what you all are doing over there. In some ways, I feel like you guys are like 20 years ahead of where we are. And maybe we can get there, with some of the things you're doing someday. In some ways, we're right there with you, in terms of like our heart and our ministry. And so, it's such a joy. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your time with us. And hopefully it won't be the last time. I'm sure we'll connect. You and I know we'll connect again for sure, but hopefully we can get some more of your wisdom shared with people in our community. And blessings to you today. And I know it's a busy day for you. Have a great rest of your day. And we'll catch you next time. Any final word?
Thank you, Living Water. Thank you, Pastor Chris. Praying for your beloved community and excited to learn and partner with you all in the future. God bless you all.
All right. Thanks, Carrington. All right. Don't forget to, leave us a comment, give us some feedback, let us know how we're doing. And hopefully we'll see you again on the next episode next week. Thanks, everybody.